They thought they could steal my land and get away with it. But before this story ends, you'll see how I turned 96 stolen homes into the weapon that exposed their entire scheme. How do you fight when someone literally builds a neighborhood on your property? I inherited 47 acres in Colorado from my grandfather, paid off, pristine, and meant to be mine. I hadn't visited in 3 years, too busy with divorce, kids in college, and grueling work weeks. But in August 2022, I finally drove up to scatter his ashes, and my stomach dropped. Where my pine forest once stood, there were now 96 Mediterranean-style houses, painted beige, fake balconies, paved roads, street lights, families moving in as if they belonged. The carved stone entrance read, Ridgeline Heights, a Whitmore luxury community. My GPS confirmed it, same coordinates. This was my land. A security guard blocked the entrance. Residents only, he said. I held up a photo of the deed on my phone. I own this property. He smirked. Sure, buddy, and I'm Elon Musk. Before I could argue, a white Range Rover glided up. Out stepped Cassandra Whitmore, mid-50s, Botoxed into permanent mild surprise, wearing linen that probably cost more than my mortgage for a year. She had the kind of energy that screamed, I've never been told no. Problem, Ray? She said to the guard, eyes never on me. This gentleman claims he owns the development. Finally, she looked at me. Work boots, Carhartt jacket, calloused hands. She mentally filed me under poor. How charming, she said. Sweetie, if you're looking for construction work, most crews are full, but I can take your number. I'm not looking for work. I'm the legal owner. My grandfather, William Flint. She pulled out her phone, manicured nails scrolling. Our title company ran a forensic search. This land's abandoned over 3 years, so under Colorado Adverse Possession Statute 3841-101, it's legally ours. I interrupted. Her smile sharpened. That's adorable. You know just enough to be dangerous. She pulled a business card from her purse, holding it like it was radioactive.
Brian Keir, our attorney, she said. He'll explain why your claim is frivolous. And just like that, the fight I didn't know I was ready for had officially begun. How do you fight when the person threatening you literally photographs your car and dares you to step foot on your own land? Little did Cassandra know that same threat was about to hand me the evidence I needed to bury her entire empire. I took her card. How many houses are sold? I asked. All 96, she said, like it was a warning. Pre-construction sales totaled $16 million. Families are moving in by Thanksgiving. Her words hit like a punch. She didn't even look at me. This is a legitimate development, properly permitted through Boulder County, she said. If you continue trespassing, I'll call Sheriff Mitchell personally. We're major contributors to his equipment fund. Then she did something that made my blood freeze. She pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of my license plate. Just in case you decide to come back and vandalize anything, we have excellent security footage, she whispered, leaning closer. And trust me, honey, people like you don't win against people like us. The diesel smell from a nearby excavator mixed with fresh concrete, a nail gun popped in the distance like a countdown. My hands shook as I drove home. That night, I spread Grandpa's documents across the kitchen table. The 1971 deed, 47 years of annual tax receipts, survey maps. Cassandra had just given me everything I needed to bury her entire empire. Monday morning, I called Brian Keir, her attorney. His receptionist's voice was professionally pleasant, the kind of calm that comes before bad news. Mr. Keir is in depositions all week. Can I take a message? Dakota Flint, about Ridgeline Heights.
Oh, yes. Mr. Keir anticipated your call. He's authorized me to offer a nuisance settlement of $15,000 if you sign a quitclaim deed by Friday. $15,000 for $4 million in land? My blood boiled. I knew quitclaim deeds from my divorce, basically a legal way to say, I give up and no one promises you were right anyway. My divorce lawyer had warned me, never sign one unless you're absolutely sure you're walking away from nothing. Tell Mr. Keir I'll see him in court, I said, and I hung up before she could respond. I needed a real lawyer, not the $2,200 divorce kind. I needed someone who made other lawyers check their malpractice insurance. My buddy Marcus, a civil engineer in Cheyenne, gave me a name. Lydia Chen. She'd crushed a railroad company in a Wyoming adverse possession case so badly they offered her a job just to make her stop. Consultation fee? $500. I paid it on a credit card and prayed. Lydia's office smelled like old leather and lemon polish, the kind of expensive that makes you sit up straighter. She was about 60, gray hair in a tight bun, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She listened to my story without interrupting, scribbling notes with handwriting so perfect it could have been a font. When she finished, she set down her pen. Show me your tax receipts. I pulled out a folder thick enough to hurt someone. Email confirmations, bank statements, county records, every April payment since 2019, plus copies dating back to Grandpa's first payment in 1971. She flipped through them, her lips twitching, maybe a smile if her face had allowed it, and then she said something that made my heart race.
What if the smartest move isn't to stop the construction, but to let the people stealing your land finish it themselves? That gamble would either make me a hero or ruin everything. Colorado adverse possession requires 18 years of open, continuous, hostile possession. And even if someone squats, if you've been paying your taxes the entire time, their claim is still dead on arrival. So I can get an injunction. Stop construction, right? I asked. She closed the folder and leaned in. You could, but here's what I'd do instead. And you're going to think I've lost my mind. Let them finish building. I stared at her. What? Stop construction now, Cassandra's company declares bankruptcy. Your land gets tied up in a 3-year litigation circus with 96 families suing everyone, the banks, the title companies, the insurance companies, legal whack-a-mole. Her eyes locked on mine. But if you let them finish, then file for a declaratory judgment, you'll own 96 completed houses. Cassandra's company has committed textbook fraud, selling property they don't own. They'll be desperate to settle. The alternative? Prison. My hands shook. What if they somehow win? They won't, she said. But even in some parallel universe where they do, you've lost nothing. Your land's already occupied. The difference is whether you fight one corrupt developer or 96 traumatized families. Cold, strategic, brutal, and it makes perfect sense. How much? I asked. 40, maybe 50,000 in legal fees. But when we win, and we will, the court awards damages for trespass, unjust enrichment, fraud, and attorney's fees. You'll own the houses outright. Sell them, rent them, or negotiate a settlement worth millions. I had $12,000 in savings, my Silverado needed a transmission, my daughter's tuition was due in January. I nodded. I'll figure it out.
One last thing. Lydia's voice dropped. Don't contact Cassandra. Don't post on Facebook. Don't tell anyone except your kids and maybe one trusted friend. In property litigation, surprise is worth more than gold. I hired her that day, signing a retainer agreement that made my stomach churn. September bled into October. Twice a week, I drove past Ridgeline Heights, parking on the public road with my phone camera rolling. Framers swarmed like ants. Sawdust and diesel filled the air. Plumbers hauled coils of PEX tubing. Electricians snaked wire through walls. Every visit, time-stamped photos. Cassandra spotted me in her third week. She made a phone call. I could see her from 200 yards away, waving at my truck like it was a bomb. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind me. Deputy Torres, young, probably late 20s, shifting uncomfortably. "Sir, need to see your license." I handed it over. "I'm on a public road, officer." He walked back, ran my plates, came back looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mrs. Whitmore says you've been harassing her, following her, taking pictures." "I'm documenting construction on property I own. Check Boulder County records. Parcel APN 559324008. Owner, Dakota Flint." Torres shifted. "Look, if there's a property dispute, that's civil court, but she filed a formal complaint. If she calls again saying you're threatening her, I'll have to take action. Understand?" Translation: she donates to the sheriff's re-election fund. You don't. Understood. He left. I kept taking pictures. By November, the first families moved in. U-Hauls blocked cul-de-sacs. Kids rode scooters. The smell of pizza delivery mixed with fresh paint. I watched a couple carry a crib into house number 43. Another family planted a maple tree in their front yard.
And I realized this was no longer just about land. This was about what I was willing to risk to take everything back. They weren't villains. That's what made the whole thing harder, because the people moving into those houses, they were innocent, while the woman who sold them the dream was about to learn what it costs to steal one. And I felt sick, because these weren't bad people. They were families who'd scraped together down payments, people who thought they were finally stepping into the American dream. But Cassandra, she was about to learn that stealing costs more than money. Thanksgiving week, she sent me a certified letter. I signed for it at the post office. Deb, the clerk who'd known my grandfather, looked at the return address and wrinkled her nose. Whitmore Development, LLC. "That the lady building those McMansions on Old Mill Road?" she asked. "My sister tried to buy one. They wanted $485 for 1,800 square feet. Highway robbery." She handed me the envelope like it smelled rotten. I opened it in my truck. Legal letterhead, Brian Kemper's signature stamped at the bottom. 3 pages of dense, smug legal jargon that basically said, "Stop trespassing or we'll sue you." There was a photo attached, my Silverado parked on the public road. Shot from inside the subdivision, my license plate circled in red Sharpie. Someone had written in the margin, "Document everything." Not creepy at all. I drove straight to Lydia's office. She read the letter and started laughing. Not the polite lawyer laugh. The genuine, deep, I can't believe they're this dumb laugh.
"They're documenting their own fraud," she said, wiping her eyes. "Every letter they send, every photo they take, every interaction, they're proving they knew there was a dispute and kept building anyway."
"It doesn't feel beautiful," I muttered. "Feels like I'm being stalked." "You are," she said calmly. "But here's what you're going to do.
Nothing. Let them waste money on legal threats. Let them generate evidence. We'll file in January, right after the holidays when no one's paying attention. She slid out a yellow pad. Now, meanwhile, I need everything on Cassandra Whitmore. Property records, business filings, tax liens, anything public. I want to know who's bankrolling her. So, I spent the next 2 weeks becoming an amateur detective. Turns out, being an engineer teaches you how to read plats, survey maps, permit applications, and Boulder County's online records? A gold mine. Boulder Development, LLC, registered in Delaware. Instant red flag. Delaware corporations are the foggy windows criminals love to stand behind. Cassandra was listed as the sole managing member, but the financing, Ridgeline Capital Group, Denver. I dug deeper. Ridgeline Capital was owned by 3 partners, and one of them was Cassandra's husband, Preston Whitmore, a developer with 2 lawsuits for construction defects and 1 for defrauding investors in a failed resort project. All settled quietly, all sealed. So, this wasn't just Cassandra's scam. It was a family business. And then, I found the smoking gun. The Boulder County permits listed the land as formerly tax delinquent, acquired via an adverse possession claim filed March 2022. But here's the thing. You can't sell property based on an adverse possession claim. Not until a judge rules. Not until that judgment is recorded. They skipped that part. Filed the claim, then immediately started selling lots as if the ruling already existed.
That's not a mistake. That's premeditated, documented fraud. I sent everything to Lydia in an encrypted email, because by then I understood something. Developers like the Whitmores don't just build houses, they build problems. And I had just knocked on their front door. What I didn't know was that the next piece of evidence I uncovered would put every single person in that subdivision in danger, including me. It takes years to build a reputation, and one Facebook post to burn it down. And Cassandra was about to strike the match. Lydia called me an hour later. "Dakota, this is better than I thought." Her voice had that sharp, controlled excitement lawyers get when they smell blood. "Preston Whitmore has a pattern. If we can prove he knew about your ownership and built anyway, this isn't just civil trespass. This becomes criminal fraud." My breath caught. "How do we prove that?" "Let me worry about that," she said. "You just keep your head down." But keeping my head down became impossible when Cassandra escalated. December 3rd, I got a call from Boulder County Code Enforcement. A man named Rick Polson, voice tired like he'd been dealing with nonsense since sunrise. "Mr. Flint, we received a report you're operating an illegal dumping site on parcel 5593240. "What?" I sputtered. "I don't even live there." "The complaint says there's construction debris, abandoned vehicles, and potential hazardous waste. I'm required to inspect. If violations are confirmed, fines start at $500 per day." I drove up that afternoon with my phone recording. The property was pristine. Well, except for the 96 houses that Cassandra had illegally planted on it. No debris, no vehicles, nothing. Rick met me at the entrance, middle-aged, sunburned, wearing a county vest that had seen too many summers. He walked the perimeter, checked behind houses, took photos. Finally, he came back, shaking his head. "There's nothing here. Someone filed a false report." "Who filed it?" He checked his notes. "Anonymous tip, but it came through Mrs. Whitmore's office as a concerned citizen complaint." So, she wasn't just stealing my land. She was trying to get me fined for violations that didn't exist on land she was illegally occupying. Rick looked at me for a long moment. "Off the record, I've inspected 6 Whitmore projects. Every single one had complaints filed against neighboring landowners right before permits were approved. It's a pattern. He handed me his card. If you need a witness statement, call me. I drove home with that card in my pocket and a slow, burning rage in my chest. Cassandra wasn't just trying to push me off my land. She was trying to bury me in bureaucratic quicksand before the truth could surface. But what she didn't know, what no one knew except Lydia, was that every move she made was digging her own grave deeper. Christmas came. 84 houses were now occupied. Families were hanging lights, kids were building snowmen, and my court date was set for January 12th. Then, January 4th, 8 days before the hearing. At 11 p.m., my daughter Emma texted me, "Dad, did you get arrested? Someone posted on Facebook that you're harassing families. It has 300 shares." My stomach dropped. I opened Facebook, first time since my divorce. And there it was, pinned to the top of the Boulder County Community Watch Group. Written by Cassandra herself. Alert! Local man, Dakota Flint, has been stalking our family-friendly Ridgeline Heights community, taking photos of children, making residents feel unsafe. He claims to own our neighborhood despite clear legal title. Boulder County Sheriff is aware. Please report any sightings. Protect your families.
The comments were a dumpster fire. But one comment, one single line buried in the chaos, would change everything and expose the Whitmores in a way no lawsuit ever could. A lie doesn't need proof to ruin you, just momentum. And Cassandra had just given her lie a running start. People were calling me a predator, a monster, someone who belonged on a registry. Someone posted a photo of my Silverado, license plate visible, with the caption, "This is his truck. Stay safe, everyone." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called Lydia. She picked up on the first ring. "I saw it," she said. "Do not respond. Do not comment. Do not defend yourself." "She's calling me a pedophile, Lydia. My daughter's crying. My son asked if I'm going to jail." "I know, and it's defamation. We're adding it to the lawsuit. But if you engage, you look guilty. Let me handle this." Her tone softened. "Dakota, this is what desperate people do. She knows we filed. She knows her attorney has seen the evidence. This is a Hail Mary, an attempt to poison the waters before the trial." "It's working," I whispered. "I've gotten 12 messages from people I went to high school with, asking what's going on." "Good. Screenshot everything. Every share, every comment, every message. That's evidence of malice." So I spent the next 3 hours documenting the wildfire. By midnight, the post had 847 shares. Someone had made a hashtag Stop Dakota Flint. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my boss called me into his office. Martin, ex-Navy, steady as a concrete pillar, closed the door behind me. Never a good sign. "Dakota, I got a call from a potential client this morning. They Googled our firm and found this situation with your name attached." My chest tightened. "The Facebook post." Yeah, he rubbed his face. "Look, I know you. You're solid. But this client's a school district, and they're nervous about optics. They asked if you'd be on the project." My mouth went dry. "I told them no," he said quietly. "Effective today, you're on personal leave pending resolution of your legal matter." He slid an envelope across the table. 2 weeks of paid leave. If this gets resolved, you're back immediately. If it doesn't..." He didn't finish the sentence. I took the envelope. Understood. Walking to my truck, I passed Jenny from accounting. Sweet woman. always brought cookies at Christmas. She saw me and crossed to the other side of the parking lot. That's when I finally understood. Cassandra wasn't just attacking my legal claim. She was dismantling my life, reputation, employment, my ability to exist in my own town. I sat in my truck and called Lydia again. They're destroying me. I just got put on leave. People won't even walk near me. I'm filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order against Cassandra. Defamation, emotional distress, interference with business relations. Hearing is Monday. She paused. But Dakota, you need to understand something. This gets worse before it gets better. If you want to walk away, I can negotiate a settlement. You'll get something, maybe $500,000. You can move, start over. I thought about Grandpa's note. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. No, I said, we finished this. Then buckle up, she warned, because they're going to hit harder. She was right. January 7th, I woke up to spray paint across my garage door. Pervert. I filed a police report. Officer Patterson came, a man who'd been doing the job too long to care.
He snapped photos like he was checking boxes on a DMV form. Any idea who did this? Check the Facebook post, I said. Probably someone who believed it. He wrote something down. We'll increase patrols in your area. But that night, the same night Patterson promised increased patrols, someone came back. And this time, they didn't just bring spray paint. How far would someone go to destroy you? That night I found out just how far Cassandra was willing to go. I slept with a baseball bat next to my bed. January 9th, 3 days before court, my phone rang. It was Emma, crying. Dad, someone sent me a Facebook post. It says you're a creep. Everyone knows it. I drove straight to her apartment in Fort Collins. She and her roommate sat on the couch like I was radioactive. Dad, just tell me the truth. Are you really stalking people? I took a deep breath and explained everything. The land, Cassandra, the houses, the lawsuit. I pulled out Grandpa's deed, the tax receipts, Lydia's court filings. Emma read through them, and I watched her expression shift. Fear melted into fury. So she's lying about everything? Everything, she said. Then we need to fight back. I felt a flicker of hope. Lydia's voice came in my head. We wait for court. Emma shook her head. Dad, you've been on defense your whole life. Divorce, work, everything. Just once. Hit first. I said nothing, but her words stayed with me. January 11th. The night before court, a final message came in from an unknown number. Drop the lawsuit, or everyone finds out what you really are. I forwarded it to Lydia. Instant reply? Perfect. Bring your phone to court tomorrow. We're going to bury them.
The Boulder County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and recycled air. I met Lydia outside courtroom 3C at 8:45 a.m. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my truck, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it could stop bullets. You ready? She asked. I wasn't. My hands sweated. I wore my only suit, the one from my daughter's high school graduation 3 years ago. Too tight in the shoulders now. Do we have enough? I asked. We have a nuclear bomb. Trust me, she said. She checked her watch. Cassandra's attorney had filed a motion to dismiss yesterday at 5:57 p.m. Classic delay tactic. Judge Ramirez hated that. We walked in. Cassandra sat at the defendant's table with Brian Kiefer and Preston Whitmore, her husband. I'd only seen him in property records. Preston, 60, gray hair slicked back, wore a suit that screamed, I've settled 3 fraud lawsuits. Whispering to Kiefer, they looked relaxed, confident. Cassandra saw me and smiled. Actually smiled. like she'd already won. Judge Angela Ramirez entered, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and zero patience. Be seated. Case number 2023 CV0000847, Flint versus Whitmore Development LLC and Associated Parties. She looked at Kiefer. Counselor, I received your motion to dismiss at 5 p.m. yesterday. Explain why you think that's appropriate. Kiefer stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff's claim is defective on its face. Whitmore Development holds clear title via adverse possession. Mr. Flint abandoned the property for over 3 years. Did he pay property taxes? Judge Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Well, yes, but then adverse possession fails under Colorado Statute 3841-101. I clenched my fists. Every person in the courtroom thought the ruling was obvious, but they had no idea what Lydia had uncovered. What she was about to do next would turn everything upside down. When a lie starts collapsing, the first cracks always appear in the eyes of the person who told it, and Cassandra's eyes cracked first.
Judge Ramirez didn't even blink. What else do you have? Kier's confidence shattered like brittle concrete. Your Honor, the title company conducted a thorough— Miss Chen, the judge said. Lydia stood. The temperature in the courtroom dropped by 5 degrees. Your Honor, we're not here to debate adverse possession. That claim is frivolous. We're here because the defendants knowingly committed fraud. She opened her briefcase with the quiet confidence of someone about to detonate a bomb. I'd like to submit Exhibit A, an internal email from Preston Whitmore to Cassandra Whitmore, dated February 18, 2022. She handed copies to the judge and to Kier. I leaned forward. Kier went white. Judge Ramirez skimmed it, eyebrows rising like she just found a loaded gun in a children's toy box. Counselor Kier, did you know about this email? Kier swallowed. Your Honor, I've never seen this document. It was submitted in discovery last week, Lydia said smoothly. Perhaps it got lost in your office. I whispered. What does it say? Lydia slid me a copy. I read it, and my heart punched the inside of my ribs. From Preston Whitmore at Ridgeline Capital to C. Whitmore at Whitmore Development. Subject, Old Mill Road Property, Risk Assessment. Cassie spoke with our title attorney. The Flint parcel is not abandoned. The owner, William Flint's grandson, has been paying property taxes continuously since 2019. Adverse possession won't hold up in court. However, if we move fast, file the AP claim, get permits approved, start selling lots before anyone notices, we can create enough chaos that Flint either settles cheap or gets buried in litigation costs. Worst case, we build everything, file bankruptcy, and let the title insurance companies sort it out. We've done this before. Aspen Project 2019. Risk level, medium. Reward level, 16M gross.
I read it twice. Then a third time. They'd known from day one. They weren't mistaken. They were stealing my land on purpose. Lydia turned back to the judge. Your Honor, this email proves intentional fraud. They knew Mr. Flint owned the property. They proceeded anyway because they assumed he couldn't afford to fight them. Judge Ramirez looked at Preston and Cassandra. Is this email authentic? Preston started to rise, but Kier yanked him back down. Your Honor, we need to consult with our clients. That sounds like a yes, the judge said, closing the folder. Then she delivered the blow. Motion to dismiss is denied. This case is proceeding to trial on an expedited schedule. Further, Whitmore Development is under a temporary restraining order. All sales, marketing, and transfers related to Ridgeline Heights are halted effective immediately. She shifted her gaze to Cassandra. And Mrs. Whitmore, if I see one more Facebook post or one more threat, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear?
Cassandra's face drained to chalk. "Yes, Your Honor." Outside the courthouse, Lydia exhaled like she had just crossed a finish line. That email? A whistleblower. One of Preston's old business partners. He got screwed in the Aspen deal and has been waiting 5 years for revenge. "How did you find him?" I asked. She smirked. "I'm very good at my job." For the first time in 4 months, I could breathe. That night, I bought a bottle of whiskey I definitely couldn't afford and sat on the back porch watching the snow fall. My phone buzzed nonstop. Emma, Tyler, Marcus from Wyoming, even my ex-wife checking in. But the message that mattered came at 9:47 p.m. My office. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring coffee. We're building the kill shot.
The next morning, I showed up at 9:30 with 2 coffees and a box of donuts, the kind of breakfast you bring when you're preparing to end someone's empire. Lydia's conference room looked less like a law office and more like the war room of a true crime documentary. A whiteboard covered an entire wall, already half consumed by dates, arrows, circles, and color-coded lines that crisscrossed like the map of a criminal cartel. "You've brought donuts?" she said, grabbing a glazed one without breaking stride. "Good, I like you more now." I stared at the board. "What is all this?" She clicked open a marker. "This," she tapped the lines like she was connecting the veins of a living beast, "is how we turn your property dispute into a criminal referral." She drew a thick circle around Preston's name. The email was the grenade. Now we roll in the artillery. She wasn't exaggerating. Apparently, while I drowned my stress in whiskey and snowflakes, Lydia and her paralegal had spent the entire night tracking down every project the Whitmores had touched in the last 10 years. 7 projects. 7 Colorado mountain towns. 7 identical patterns. Find land with murky title or vulnerable owners. File aggressive claims, build fast, sell faster, then let the title insurance companies fight over the wreckage. She turned, marker in hand. "They're not developers, Dakota. They're land pirates with LLCs. But then she pointed at me. "Your case, however, this is their nightmare scenario. Because unlike most of their victims, elderly, alone, poor, or unable to dig up decades-old paperwork, I had something the Whitmores never accounted for. Grandpa William Flint's obsessive, tobacco-scented ledgers. Every fence repair, every timber sale, every tax payment, every boundary survey, every photograph with GPS metadata, a meticulous paper trail stretching back to 1971. "You can prove continuous ownership," Lydia said. "Most people can't. And that," she tapped the board again, "is the difference between $1 million theft and a criminal enterprise." She pulled a yellow legal pad toward us. "Here's the strategy. Phase 1, discovery. We depose everyone," she said. "Preston, Cassandra, the tile company, the lender, every contractor who pulled permits." "Depositions," I muttered. I remembered the concept from my divorce. A room, a stenographer, hours of being grilled under oath. "Exactly," she said. "People think they can lie. They can't. Not to me. I'll ask the same question 17 different ways until someone snaps. It's fishing with dynamite." Phase 2, RICO. She wrote the letters in big, sharp strokes across the board. RICO. The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, she said. "You know, mafia stuff." My mouth dried. "If we prove they've run this scam across multiple projects, which we can, it becomes federal." She wrote another number. $16.8 million in treble damages. My throat tightened. "Can they even pay that?" She smiled like a shark. "No, which means they'll settle.
But here's the best part. She leaned in. Preston and Cassandra personally guaranteed their construction loans. I blinked. So if their company collapses, the banks come after their houses, their cars, their accounts, their everything, she finished, almost giddy. They lose the empire they built stealing from people like your grandfather. I'd never seen Lydia excited before. It was terrifying in a strangely comforting way. What do I need to do? I asked. She held up 3 fingers. 1, I need you to map every single visit you made to the property. Dates, times, photos, who you talked to, what you saw. Taurus, Rick Polson, every witness. I pulled out my phone. I've been keeping a log since September. She gave a satisfied nod. Smart.
2, we need allies. Anyone Whitmore has screwed, former employees, unpaid contractors, neighbors who got harassed. I want a list. I remembered Rick Polson's words. Every Whitmore project I've inspected had complaints filed against neighboring landowners. Lydia scribbled something. Her eyes glowed. We're not just building a case, Dakota. We're building a reckoning. I know where to start, I said. Lydia leaned forward, eyes sharp. 3rd, this goes public, Dakota. Not Facebook. That's Cassandra's playground. We're talking local news. She smiled, tapping a contact card against the table. Channel 9, Denver. Investigative reporter, Patricia Hughes. 2 Emmys. She's taken down slumlords and crooked county commissioners. You want me on TV? I want us on TV. You, me, and every family who bought a house in Ridgeline Heights thinking they were getting the American dream. She nodded. Those 96 families aren't the enemy. They're victims, same as you. When this is over, they own their homes free and clear. Cassandra? She owns nothing but legal bills. She handed me a folder. This is the deposition schedule. Preston goes first, next Thursday. Cassandra the week after. You need to be there for both. I want them to see your face when they're forced to tell the truth. I flipped it open. Dates, locations, a list of questions Lydia planned to ask. It read like a murder weapon, meticulous and devastating. When this is over, I asked, how much will I owe you? She said, less than you think. When we win, the court awards attorney's fees. The Whitmores will pay me all $60,000. I blinked. She smiled, sharp. That's the beautiful thing about fraud cases. The guilty party pays everyone's bills. I left her office at noon with a plan, a purpose, and, for the first time since August, a sense that justice wasn't a word people used to justify revenge. It was something you built, carefully, methodically, with receipts.
January 18th. Preston Whitmore deposition. The 14th floor of a glass-walled Denver office looked peaceful, even majestic. Snow-covered Rockies glowed in the morning sun, indifferent to the carnage about to unfold inside. Preston Whitmore arrived in a charcoal suit, escorted by Diane Kelso, his attorney. She had that sharp, predatory look, the kind of lawyer who bills $800 an hour and sleeps well at night knowing she intimidates people for breakfast. Preston didn't look at me, not once. The court reporter, a tiny woman with a stenograph machine clicking like nervous insects, swore him in. Lydia started soft. Name, address, occupation. Preston answered in a monotone boardroom voice, calm, practiced, polished. Probably done this 100 times. Mr. Whitmore, Lydia said, sliding an envelope across the table. Do you recognize this email? I saw it instantly, the February 18th smoking gun. Preston glanced at it. I do. Did you write it? Yes. I felt my stomach drop. He knew. In February 2022, he knew Dakota Flint was the legal owner of the Old Mill Road property. Kelso leaned in, sharp. Do not answer that. Lydia didn't flinch. Your owner granted a discovery order. He must answer. Preston shifted uncomfortably. I knew someone named Flint was listed in county records, but our title company advised us the property was effectively abandoned. Lydia's pen flew across her pad. I watched Preston's jaw tighten. He knew what was coming. The moment Preston fled that room, I thought the worst was over. I had no idea the real attack, the one aimed at my family, was already on its way. Lydia didn't waste a second. The title company was next on her list, and once they were under oath, they'd either confirm Preston's lie or sacrifice him to save their license. There was no middle ground. What followed was brutal. 50 more questions, each sharper than the last, each tightening that invisible noose around Preston's neck.
By 11 a.m., sweat darkened his expensive shirt. By noon, he had contradicted himself 4 separate times. And when Lydia finally said, "No further questions," Preston didn't walk out. He escaped. But his attorney stayed behind. Diane Kelso, sharp suit, sharper eyes, looked at Lydia with reluctant admiration. "Your client should settle," she murmured. "Your client should have thought of that before committing fraud." Diane folded her arms. "Name a number." Lydia didn't hesitate. 10 million, plus resignations from every corporate board, plus dissolving Ridgeline Capital, plus personally financing the transfer of all 96 homes at cost. Oh, and a written apology. Diane let out a bitter laugh. "He'll never agree to that." "Then we'll see him in court," Lydia said, standing, "and I'll bring Channel 9 with me." For a moment, Diane had no comeback. But 2 days later, everything darkened. At 6 p.m., my phone rang. Tyler, my son, 23, working nights, finishing his culinary degree. His voice trembled the moment he spoke. "Dad, someone came to the restaurant." My stomach crashed to the floor. "What happened?" "He said this guy in a suit showed up, said he was a private investigator, asked my manager if I was reliable, if you were violent, if there were incidents he should know about." Tyler sucked in a shaky breath. "Dad, my manager pulled me aside, asked if there was something I needed to tell him. I could get fired." A heat rose in my chest. Fear, rage, all of it twisting together. What was his name? Thomas Brennan, Apex Investigations. I wrote it down with a hand that barely held steady. "Tyler, listen, don't talk to him again. If he comes back, send him to my attorney. I'll handle it." After he hung up, I left Lydia a voicemail, one that probably sounded like panic wearing a mask. She called back at 8 p.m., voice flat and cold as a mountain lake. "I know. Whitmore hired a PI. Textbook intimidation. But going after your son?" A beat. "That's witness tampering. A felony." I sent her a photo of the business card. She didn't hesitate. "I'm filing an emergency motion tomorrow." But the hits weren't done. January 23rd. An email from the IRS landed in my inbox. Audit. 3 years. Reported irregularities. There were none. I was a W-2 employee with simple taxes. This wasn't oversight. It was a weapon. I forwarded it to Lydia. She called instantly. "They're burning bridges now," she said. "This is what rich people do when they panic. They throw money at the problem until the problem disappears." I exhaled shakily. It's working. I can't afford an IRS audit on top of all of this. "You won't have to. The IRS report is anonymous, but Apex Investigations' client records aren't. If we prove Whitmore filed a false report," she paused, "that's another felony." Silence pulsed between us. Then she added, voice low, certain, "Dakota, they're making mistakes now. Desperate people always do. But I didn't know the biggest mistake. The one that would finally break everything open was just a day away. January 25th.
The Whitmores were panicking, and their mistakes were about to become my advantage. But nothing prepared me for the chaos that came crashing through my phone that morning. Somebody leaked the Ridgeline Heights sales contracts, all 96 contracts, showing buyers had paid $450,000 to $530,000 for homes built on disputed land. A local Boulder real estate blog ran the headline, "Luxury developer sold homes on stolen property. Buyers may lose everything." My phone exploded. Emails, calls, messages, panic. One caller broke me. Sarah Chen, house number 67, her entire life savings tied up in a down payment. She was crying so hard I could hear her shaking over the line.
Mr. Flint, please. I have 2 kids. We moved here from California. This is supposed to be our forever home. I swallowed. I'm not trying to take your house. I'm trying to stop the people who stole from both of us. But what if you win? She asked, voice breaking. Do we get evicted? No. You'll own your home. The developer will pay for it. And if they can't, I had no answer for that. That night, Lydia called with news. Channel 9 wants to interview you, she said. Patricia Hughes, investigative reporter, Emmy winner, corporate fraud specialist. The segment airs February 2nd, 1 week before trial. What do I say? I asked. The truth. That you're fighting for your grandfather's legacy. That you're not the enemy. The Whitmores are. And every family in Ridgeline Heights deserves to keep their home. I thought of Sarah Chen's voice, trembling on the phone. Set it up, I said. The interview. January 30th, 2 p.m. Patricia arrived with Steve, her cameraman, and enough lighting equipment to shoot a Marvel movie. Patricia, mid-40s, hair streaked with gray, practical ponytail, jeans and blazer, saying, "I'm professional, but I'll crawl through dumpsters for a story." She shook my hand. Mr. Flint, I've been covering real estate fraud for 12 years. Your case? It's the most brazen I've ever seen. My living room looked pristine. The kind of clean you get when you shove all your laundry in closets like a teenager before prom. Steve set up lights. Patricia reviewed her notes. I'm going to ask you about your grandfather, the property, and what happened when you discovered the development. Just talk to me, not the camera. We'll edit later. 90 minutes later, I had told her everything. Grandpa's meticulous ledgers, Cassandra's contempt and threats, the Facebook smear campaign, Preston's smoking gun email, the families caught in the middle.
Her questions were sharp but fair. She made it feel like I was talking to a friend, not performing for an audience. At the end, she turned off the camera. Off the record, Patricia called Cassandra Whitmore for comment. Whitmore threatened to sue me for defamation if the segment aired. Will you still run it? I asked. Patricia smiled. Absolutely. Threats mean I'm onto something. TV airing day, February 2nd, 6 p.m. I sat alone in my living room, beer untouched in hand. Patricia's voice cut through the silence. He inherited the American dream, 47 acres of Colorado forest, but when Dakota Flint visited his land for the first time in 3 years, he found a nightmare instead. Aerial footage of Ridgeline Heights, intercut shots of my interview, Grandpa's deed, tax receipts, Preston's smoking gun email. She had obtained county permit records showing the Whitmores fast-tracked approvals by donating $50,000 to the county commissioner's re-election fund. The piece ended with my words. I'm not trying to hurt the families who bought these homes. Because the families weren't the enemy. Cassandra Whitmore was, and now the world could see it too. They think they can scare me into giving up, But 2 days after my story aired, I came home to find a warning waiting on my kitchen table that made my blood run cold. The families in Ridgeline Heights weren't my enemies. They were victims, too. But if people like the Whitmores got away with this, what's the point of property rights? What's the point of laws? My phone didn't stop buzzing. Emma called, tears streaming, but this time, proud ones. Marcus texted, "You just became a folk hero." Even my boss, Martin, sent an email, "Come back Monday. We're proud to have you." But the message that mattered came at 7:15 p.m. from a blocked number. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I forwarded it to Lydia. She called immediately. "Don't go anywhere alone. Vary your routes. Keep your doors locked." I laughed nervously. Do they really think they can scare me? Lydia's voice was cold. They're cornered. People do stupid things. Be careful. 2 days later, February 4th, I returned from grocery shopping. My front door was ajar. I had locked it, I was certain. Heart hammering, I called 911. Deputy Torres arrived first, this time with backup. They cleared the house, room by room. Nothing missing. But someone had been inside. On the kitchen table, a single sheet of paper with 5 words in block letters. "Drop it or lose everything." Torres bagged it as evidence. "We'll check for prints," he said. If they were smart, they wore gloves. "This is the Whitmores," I muttered. "They broke into my house." "Can you prove it?" Torres asked. I couldn't. 2 hours later, my neighbor, Carol, a retired librarian in her 70s, who'd lived on the street for 40 years, knocked. "Dakota, I saw a black Audi SUV parked across the street yesterday around noon. A man in a suit got out, walked up your driveway, came back 10 minutes later. I thought he was a salesman. Didn't see his face, but I wrote down the license plate." She handed me a sticky note. KLM 4892, Colorado plate. I gave it to Torres. It was registered to Apex Investigations. Thomas Brennan, the PI who harassed my son. Torres looked uneasy. Breaking and entering is a felony, but proving it without video? Tough. They probably got away with it. He said, "File a report. Detective will follow up, but consider staying somewhere else until this is over." That night, I crashed on Emma's couch in Fort Collins. Phone charging, baseball bat leaning against the wall.
February 6th, 3 days before trial, Lydia called. News that made me almost laugh. The title company flipped. Rocky Mountain Title admitted they knew the adverse possession claim was shaky, but approved it anyway because Preston paid $45,000 under the table. Emails, payment records, recorded phone calls, everything. We have them. We have them. But Cassandra knew too. Her attorney called begging for a settlement conference. I told them, "We'll see you in court." The silence on the line was heavy. 3 more days, Lydia said. Stay safe, stay quiet, and get ready to watch everything burn. I stared out Emma's window at the falling snow. I didn't move. I just waited. Somewhere, Cassandra and Preston were plotting their final desperate move, and I had no idea if I'd see it coming before it was too late. February 9th, trial day. I slipped into the same suit I'd worn to the first hearing, still too tight in the shoulders, and drove to Boulder. Emma rode shotgun. She insisted on coming, said I needed family there. Tyler wanted to be there too, but he couldn't risk missing work, not after the PI nearly cost him his job. The courthouse parking lot was chaos. 2 news vans, Channel 9, and a local station lined the steps, cameras rolling. Patricia Hughes spotted me and waved. I kept my head down. Lydia's orders were clear. No media comments before trial. Inside, courtroom 3C was packed. Notices had gone out to all 96 Ridgeline Heights families. At least 40 showed. I recognized Sarah Chen, sitting 3 rows back, the woman who'd called me crying about her forever home. She looked at me,
and I couldn't tell if it was hope or terror that she might lose everything.
Cassandra and Preston sat at the defense table, flanked by their attorneys, Brian Kemper and Diane Kelso, plus 2 more I didn't know. Reinforcements. Cassandra wore a cream-colored suit worth more than my truck. Face perfectly composed, but her hands trembled as she reached for her water. Judge Ramirez entered. We all stood. "Before we begin," she said, reading glasses perched on her nose, "this is a court of law, not a circus. Anyone disrupting proceedings will be removed. Understood?" Murmurs of agreement. "Miss Chen, opening statement." Lydia rose. Silence fell like a blanket. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice carried like thunder across water. "Your Honor, this case is about theft. Not the kind in dark alleys with masks and guns. The kind that happens in boardrooms with LLCs and forged documents. Dakota Flint inherited 47 acres from his grandfather, a man who paid cash in 1971 and meticulously maintained it for 48 years. When Mr. Flint couldn't visit for 3 years due to work and family, the defendants saw an opportunity." She moved toward the jury box. Old habits die hard, even in a bench trial. "They didn't just build on his land. They planned it. They researched it. They knew exactly what they were doing." She held up Preston's email, blown up poster size. "This email proves they knew Dakota Flint was the legal owner. They knew their adverse possession claim would fail. And they built anyway, because they calculated most people can't fight multi-million-dollar lawsuits." She paused. Let that sink in. "But they made one mistake. They picked the wrong victim. Dakota Flint kept every receipt, every tax payment, every survey map. He refused to quit." She turned to face Cassandra and Preston. "The defendants committed fraud. They broke into Mr. Flint's home, hired private investigators to harass his children, filed false IRS complaints. They turned his life into a nightmare because he dared to assert his legal rights."
Lydia returned to our table. "Your Honor, we're not asking for mercy. We're asking for justice, and we have the receipts." She sat. I exhaled for the first time in 3 minutes. Diane Kelso stood for the defense. She tried. I'll give her that. She argued the title company made an honest mistake, that Preston's email was taken out of context, and that adverse possession law is complex and often misunderstood. The tension in the room was electric. Every eye fixed on us, every second counting down toward the moment that would decide everything. The judge's face told the truth long before her words ever would. Those narrowed eyes, that tight, surgical line of her mouth. Judge Ramirez wasn't buying a single thing the Whitmore team tried to sell, and everyone in that courtroom felt it. The trial dragged on for 7 long hours. 7 hours of Lydia dismantling them piece by piece. She called the title company rep first, the man who admitted under oath that he'd taken a bribe. Then came Rick Paulson from Code Enforcement, laying out the pattern of fake complaints like rotten breadcrumbs leading straight back to the HOA. Deputy Torres followed, describing the harassment campaign the way soldiers describe ambushes, quietly, coldly, because the truth was ugly enough. And then Lydia entered Grandpa's ledgers, those tobacco-scented, yellowed pages that proved 50 years of continuous ownership. The courtroom went still. You could almost smell the smoke of his old pipe drifting between the lines. Preston took the stand next, and Lydia destroyed him in 40 minutes. Every question a trap, every answer a shovel digging him deeper. By the end, he was sweating, stammering, contradicting his own deposition, glancing toward Diane Kelso for a rescue that never came. Cassandra? She refused to testify. Fifth Amendment.
Her attorneys must have begged her. 1 minute on that stand and she'd have been carved open. At 4:47 p.m., Judge Ramirez announced she'd issue her ruling within 24 hours. We filed into the hallway. The homeowners swarmed me, faces pale, hopeful, terrified. Sarah Chen grabbed my arm. "What happens to us? If you win, do we lose our homes?" I looked at Lydia. She nodded. "You keep your homes," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Every single one of you. The Whitmores committed fraud, not you. You'll own your houses free and clear. That's the settlement we're demanding." Silence. Then a single clap. Then another. Then 40 homeowners applauding in a courthouse hallway like they'd just been handed their lives back. Cassandra walked past, flanked by attorneys. She looked at me once, pure hatred, and vanished behind elevator doors. Outside, Patricia Hughes caught me on the courthouse steps. "Mr. Flint, how are you feeling?" I looked at the cameras, at Emma standing beside me, at the snow-draped Rockies behind us, eternal, watching, like Grandpa. "He's proud," I said. That night, the clip went viral, 3 million views in 12 hours. And the next morning, Judge Ramirez issued her ruling. We won everything. Her 18-page decision didn't need 18 pages. The first paragraph was a nuclear strike. The defendants engaged in a calculated, systematic scheme to defraud Dakota Flint of his lawful property through false adverse possession claims, bribery of public officials, and intentional misrepresentation. Such conduct is reprehensible and will not be tolerated by this court. The order gave me full title to all 47 acres, including the 96 houses. It awarded $4.2 million in damages. It forced the Whitmores to pay $73,000 in Lydia's fees, and it referred the entire case to the U.S. Attorney for Criminal Prosecution.
Cassandra and Preston were finished. Ridgeline Capital dissolved within a week. Their Range Rover, Aspen vacation home, Cassandra's jewelry, auctioned off to pay creditors. Preston was indicted on 6 federal fraud charges. Cassandra took a plea. 3 years probation, $500,000 restitution, and a lifetime ban from Colorado real estate development. The title company lost its license. Brian Kemper resigned to avoid disbarment. But the victory came with a new problem, a big one. What do you do with 96 families who bought homes on land that now legally belonged to me? By law, I could have evicted all of them and sold everything myself, another $16 million easy. But that wasn't the real question. The real question was what I was going to do next. And the answer was about to change everything. I never expected to see 96 families crammed into an unfinished clubhouse. Not like this. Not here. March 15th, Ridgeline Heights, and every single family showed up. Sarah Chen stood at the front, clutching her daughter's hand like it was a lifeline. The Rodriguezes, an elderly couple, sat near the back, eyes wide, trembling. These weren't villains. They were teachers, nurses, electricians, people who'd saved every dollar for their slice of the American dream. I stood at the front, Lydia beside me. "I know you're scared. You bought homes in good faith. You did nothing wrong. I'm not here to punish you for someone else's crime." The room was so silent I could hear the snow melting on the roof. Here's what I'm proposing. I'm transferring ownership of all 96 homes to the Ridgeline Heights Community Trust, a nonprofit we're establishing today. Each family will own their home through the trust at the price you already paid. No mortgages, no interest, just what you've invested. If you've paid $485,000, you owe nothing more.
If you still have payments left, finish them to the trust at 0 interest. A gasp. Sarah Chen cried. The trust will cover road maintenance, property taxes, and fund a scholarship for kids in this community. Grandpa believed land was about legacy, not profit. This is his legacy. The applause started slow, like distant thunder, then rolled through the room like a storm. People hugged, they cried, shouted thank yous across the crowded clubhouse. Mr. Rodriguez walked up and shook my hand so hard I thought my shoulder would dislocate. "You're a good man," he said. "Your grandfather raised you right." By September, the William Flint Memorial Scholarship launched. $10,000 a year for a Colorado student studying engineering, forestry, or environmental science. Emma helped me set it up. Grandpa would have loved that his ledgers of timber sales were now funding someone's education. I kept 5 acres at the north end, the old-growth pines Grandpa refused to log, built a small 2-bedroom cabin, nothing fancy, sold my house in town, moved in last October. I wake up to the smell of pine and coffee, watch deer graze outside my window. Tyler visits on weekends. Emma brings her law student boyfriend. Even Jennifer, my ex-wife, stopped by once with her husband. She said she was proud. Strange, but good. Patricia Hughes did a follow-up in December. From property theft to community triumph. How one man turned injustice into justice. Her 3rd Emmy. Last week, Sarah Chen's daughter drew me a picture. A crayon house with a stick figure labeled Mr. Dakota holding a giant deed. Now it sits on my fridge, held by a Colorado-shaped magnet. Grandpa's words echo in my mind. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. He was right. But what's mine isn't just land or money. It's knowing 96 families sleep safely because I didn't quit. It's a scholarship helping a kid who reminds me of myself. Broke, stubborn, just trying to build something. It's justice. The real kind. The kind that heals. So here's my question for you. Have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare? A property dispute? Someone who thought they could steamroll you because they had money and you didn't? Drop your story in the comments. Let's build a library of how regular people beat corrupt systems. And if this story mattered to you, if it reminded you that good people can still win, hit subscribe. I've got more stories like this. Stories about the little guy outsmarting the machine. Stories with receipts. Next week, the city council denied my business permit, so I found the bylaw that made me untouchable. See you then, and remember, keep your receipts. All of them. Subscribe to witness what happens when stubborn courage turns the tide against those who think money can crush justice. Then like the video if seeing families reclaim their homes and lives hit you harder than you expected. And tell me in the comments, if you had the chance, would you fight for what's right even when it seems impossible or walk away to stay safe?